First, I want to thank THT for the invitation to speak today and for this event. Making sure that this platform is given to people with HIV to speak about our experiences is part of the change that needs to happen. I also want to thank the First Minister for his words and for recognising the importance that this plan has in ending new transmissions by 2030. So coming up here after Ian and Mercy is a bit daunting to say the least. They're incredible activists and spokespeople for the HIV community. We're here today not just to launch the action plan, but as we've heard, to remember 40 years since Terry Higgins died. Since his death, there's been incredible progress for the prevention and treatment of HIV. But the narrative that was laid down by those horrendous adverts in the 1980s, likening HIV and AIDS to a death sentence, hasn't left us. We know that with PrEP and effective treatment, we can ensure the virus is not passed on. The medical side of living with HIV has changed utterly. Yet, as someone living with HIV, the stigma and the prejudice that I feel in talking about my status remains. Over the course of the last 6 months, I've talked about my status more than I think I ever have in the last 20-odd years that I've been living with it. And yet that feeling of anxiety and fear of being judged and being vulnerable has hardly changed. What has changed is my understanding that with the support of my parents, with friends, and those people around me, it doesn't matter what other people think. As someone not too far from me said yesterday, I should be able to talk about my status as simple as I breathe. Like Mercy, my experience of being told I had HIV was not a great one, to say the least. I felt completely alone. I found no effective support. There was and continues to be no peer support in Wales, and I'm very glad this action plan aims to change that. There was no education in school as to the reality of living with HIV, and I'm hoping that will change too. When I've tried to talk about my status with people, when I first found out about my diagnosis, particularly in my community, I was rejected by many and told by some that it was a road I had chosen to go down. It's not a choice. Nobody chooses to contract HIV. It's not an experience that anyone should have to go through, but that's the impact of the negative narrative set down from the 80s, and it still affects our communities today. The plan needs to create ways to challenge that stigma and change the narrative. The last time I spoke here was for World AIDS Day, and I spoke about the importance of visibility and why more was needed in order to make the change. So around us, as you've heard earlier, you can find the 21st Century HIV exhibition. Shows faces of lots of people living with HIV in Wales, created by Fast Track Cardiff and Vale. It shows that HIV is not a barrier to living a happy and normal life in Wales. The exhibition itself is available for schools, workplaces, if anybody's interested. Don't email me, email Lisa. This action plan is our opportunity as a nation to show that people living with HIV are not defined by their status. It's our opportunity to educate the next generation on testing, and this is our chance to change that narrative for people living with HIV and make it a positive one, excuse the pun. I would urge everyone here to take part in a consultation so we can have an action plan that achieves what it needs to. Thank you.